Have you ever experienced a moment that changed everything? Today, I'm going to share a story from my life, one that turned my world upside down. That night, when my dad called me into his room, I thought he just wanted to talk. I never imagined it would turn into the most confusing, yet most unforgettable night of my life. When he reached out and placed his hand on mine, I froze, but I did not pull away. It all started the first night I came home for summer break. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked smaller than I remembered. The paint had started peeling near the gutters, and the grass was patchy and dry, like no one had taken care of it in a while. It was strange seeing it this way, faded, tired, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something that was never coming back. I sat there for a minute with the engine still running, gripping the steering wheel harder than I needed to. It had been months since I had been home. Mom was gone now. No one really said the word divorced, but the silence she left behind said more than any explanation could. I had not talked to Dad much after it happened. A few short texts here and there, one awkward phone call that ended with both of us pretending everything was fine. I did not know what to expect. Walking back into his world after all this time, I killed the engine and grabbed my duffel bag from the passenger seat. The late afternoon sun baked the driveway under my sneakers as I walked up to the door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The house smelled different, stale, like dust and coffee and old air freshener. Not bad, just empty, the kind of emptiness that sinks into the walls until even the light feels thin. Dad was in the living room when I walked in, sitting in his old recliner. He looked up, and for a second, neither of us said anything. I noticed the changes without meaning to. His hair was grayer at the temples. His face looked thinner, like he had lost weight he did not need to lose. There was a hollowness in his eyes that had never been there before. It hit me harder than I expected. "Hey, kid," he said finally, clear his throat like the words had gotten stuck somewhere. "You made it." "Yeah," I replied, setting my bag down awkwardly by the door. Traffic wasn't too bad. He nodded like that was all there was to say. I hovered there, unsure whether to go for a hug or just wave like a stranger. He made the decision by getting up and clapping a hand on my shoulder, a heavy, lingering touch that squeezed just a little too tight before letting go. "You hungry?" "I could throw something together," he offered, already walking toward the kitchen. "Sure," I said, even though my stomach was twisted in knots. We made small talk over sandwiches and chips. Dad asked about my classes, my apartment, whether my car was still giving me trouble. I asked about the house, the neighbors, the weather. It all felt rehearsed, like two actors stumbling through a script they had not rehearsed in years. After dinner, we ended up back in the living room, a baseball game playing low on the TV more for background noise than anything else. I sat on the opposite end of the couch, scrolling through my phone, pretending not to notice how often he glanced over at me. His looks weren't angry or cold. They were searching, like he was trying to memorize something that was slipping away. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was just tired from the drive. But some part of me, the part that always noticed what I didn't want to admit, felt the weight of his gaze sink under my skin. When the sun dipped below the horizon and the house began to dim, Dad got up and stretched. "Gonna turn in," he said, his voice rough around the edges. "You remember where everything is?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Not like you moved the walls around." He chuckled softly, but it held no humor. He paused in the hallway, looking back at me like he wanted to say something else. But in the end, he just nodded and disappeared into his room. I stayed there for a while, staring blankly at the TV, without really watching it. Eventually, I dragged myself upstairs to the guest room, which was still technically mine. It looked the same, like a museum of who I used to be. Posters, dusty books, a few forgotten trophies, all frozen in time. I unpacked half-heartedly, tossing clothes into drawers, setting my laptop on the desk. I didn't bother to shower. I just collapsed onto the bed, fully clothed, and stared at the cracked ceiling. The house creaked and settled around me, familiar sounds that somehow felt foreign now. I scrolled through my phone, not really reading anything, just trying to distract myself from the gnawing feeling in my gut. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, my phone buzzed violently against a nightstand. I jolted upright, heart racing. The room was pitch dark except for the soft glow of the screen. One new message from Dad. I squinted at it, my mind still tangled in sleep. Come to my room. Now. For a second, I just stared at it, not sure I had read it right. Dad was not the type to text, especially not when we were in the same house. If he needed something, he usually just knocked. The unease I had been trying to ignore all evening surged to the surface, prickling across my skin. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Maybe he needed help. Maybe he was feeling sick. I slid out of bed, moving quietly across the room. The house was too still. Every creaking floorboard echoed under my feet. The air felt heavier now, like the walls were listening. In the hallway, the light from under his door spilled weakly onto the carpet. His room was only a few steps away. I could reach it in 3 strides. I stood there for a moment, heart pounding, the silence pressing around me. Some childish voice in my head whispered that nothing would be the same after this. But I moved anyway. Hand trembling slightly, I reached the doorknob and pushed it open. The room smelled like whiskey and something heavier, grief, maybe, regret. My father sat on the edge of the bed, his elbows resting on his knees, his head bowed like he had been carrying thoughts too heavy for too long. When he looked up and saw me standing in the doorway, something raw flickered in his eyes, something tired, something human. "Hey," he said, his voice low and hoarse. "You're still up?" I hovered in place, uncertain. Every instinct screamed that I should leave. "You texted," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. He nodded slowly, dragging a hand through his hair. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep. Thought maybe you couldn't either." His words were soft, almost apologetic. I should have turned around, mumbled an excuse. But something in the way he sat there, so slumped and lost, kept me frozen. He patted the mattress beside him. "Sit with me just for a bit." My legs moved before I made the decision. I crossed the room and perched stiffly at the edge of the bed, leaving a careful space between us. The mattress dipped under my weight. The silence crackled with things neither of us could say. "You've grown up," he said after a long pause, his voice distant. "Not that little boy anymore. It's hard to believe sometimes." I let out a short, nervous laugh, trying to push away the discomfort crawling up my spine. "Yeah, I guess that's what college does." He smiled faintly, a twitch of the mouth. That smile did not reach his eyes. His hand lifted, almost without thinking, and landed softly between my shoulder blades. At first, it was just a warm, steady pressure, the kind a father might use to comfort son. But then his hand started to move, slow, deliberate circles drawn over the fabric of my t-shirt. The touch lingered longer than it should have. I shifted slightly, pretending to adjust my position, but his hand only trailed lower, sliding down the curve of my back toward my waist. My skin prickled beneath the contact. My muscles locked up. "You used to fall asleep like this," he said, his voice low, almost lost in memory. "You'd come into my room after a nightmare, just curled up right next to me." I didn't know how to respond. I nodded, staring at the far wall, pretending that not looking would stop the moment from becoming something I could not explain. His hand paused, hovering near the edge of what still felt fatherly. Then in a slow, almost unconscious motion, he moved it to my thigh, resting it there heavy, unmoving. Every muscle in my body froze. Not because I was afraid of him, but because I did not understand him. The room was too quiet, too warm. "You're so tense," Adil murmured. His thumb began tracing slow, feather-light circles on the denim. "It's just me, your dad." The pressure of his words made it harder to breathe. I stared harder at the wall, tried to stop my body from reacting to the overwhelming discomfort pressing in from every direction. "You don't have to be afraid," he whispered again, voice soft and coaxing. "You're safe here." But I wasn't. Not really. I could feel the shift in the air, the quiet way something had changed, how his presence felt different. His hand did not move again, but it did not need to. The weight of silence between us said more than words ever could. His other hand rose slowly. He brushed my hair back from my forehead, a touch that should have felt protective, but instead made my skin crawl. His fingertips lingered, tracing the curve of my hairline, brushing the edge of my jaw like he was searching for something he had lost. I flinched instinctively. He smiled, sadly, as if he had already expected me to. "You're still my boy," he said, voice thick with something heavy. "You'll always be mine." My heart slammed against my ribs. I needed to move. I needed to break the moment before it broke me. I opened my mouth, but the words died in my throat. "I should get some sleep," I said quickly, standing so abruptly the mattress creaked under the shifting weight. For a moment, Adil looked up at me. His eyes were unreadable. Then, slowly, he dropped his hands to his sides and nodded. "Yeah," he said, voice dry. "Of course. Get some rest, bud." I mumbled a good night that barely sounded like me and backed toward the door, avoiding his eyes. My hands were shaking. I did not breathe right until I was back in my room. The door closed behind me. I sat on the bed, burying my face in my hands. The room was dark, but my mind was loud. The way he had spoken, the way he had looked at me. It all echoed now, louder, clearer. I lay back under the covers, pulling them up to my chin like a child trying to hide from a storm. But I couldn't sleep. The silence in the house was thick now. It no longer felt peaceful. It felt loaded, like it was holding all the words neither of us could say. I stared at the ceiling, at the faint cracks that ran like veins across the paint. I counted them, traced them, tried to ground myself. I did not sleep. When the first pale light of dawn crept through the curtains, my body felt like it was made of stone. But my mind, it would not stop racing. Downstairs, I heard movement, the soft thud of footsteps, the clatter of pans. He was up. Maybe he had not slept either. Maybe he had spent the night in that same storm of thoughts. I stayed in bed as long as I could, scrolling through my phone without really seeing anything. Part of me hoped he would leave for work. Part of me hoped he would disappear into the garage. But eventually, the smell of bacon wafted up the stairs, and my stomach, traitorous as ever, pulled me out of hiding. I walked into the kitchen, and there he was, standing at the stove like everything was normal. When he saw me, he smiled. Bright, too bright. "Morning, bud," he said, casual as ever. "Morning." I muttered, sliding into a chair at the table. He set a stack of pancakes in front of me, with syrup and orange juice on the side. The smell should have been comforting. It wasn't. It made my chest tight. We ate in silence. Every clink of my fork on the plate felt too loud, like even the walls were listening. Adil didn't mention anything, didn't bring up the night before. He just sipped his coffee, looked out the window, and occasionally glanced at me with eyes that held too much. After breakfast, he cleared the dishes and wiped the counter like it was any other day. Then he turned to me, leaning back against the sink. "I was thinking," he said, "maybe we could clean up the shed later. Winter left it a mess." His voice was too calm. "Sure," I said, not knowing how to say no, not knowing how to speak at all. We spent the afternoon in the shed, digging through old boxes and rusty tools. The dust made my nose itch. The sun filtered into the cracks in the wood, casting golden light on everything. The work was boring, but I was thankful for it. It gave me something to do, something to touch, something to carry, something to lift besides a weight on my chest. Adil kept the conversation light. He asked about classes, teased me about my weak arms when I struggled to lift a box. I laughed back. It sounded hollow, but maybe that was good enough. Maybe he didn't notice, or maybe he just chose not to. For a little while, that silence between us became manageable again, but I knew it would come back. The things we never said always did. For a moment, it almost felt normal, like maybe last night had just been a bad dream, a weird, desperate misstep we could both silently agree to ignore. I let myself believe it, because believing that lie was easier than facing the truth. But normal never lasts, not in houses like ours. Later that evening, After dinner, an hour of TV neither of us really watched, I escaped upstairs. My room had become my only refuge. I shut the door, leaned against it, and exhaled like I'd been holding my breath since morning. I thought about locking it, but I didn't. Part of me still wanted to believe I was imagining the need to, that maybe I had misunderstood something, that if I locked the door, it would mean admitting I didn't feel safe. I sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling through my phone, not reading anything, just waiting for the night to settle down. Then I heard it, something sliding softly under the door. I frowned and stood, crossing the room. A small folded note sat on the floor, its edges curled slightly from the friction. I picked it up, my fingers already trembling. The handwriting was familiar, messy, rushed. I miss how you used to trust me. I still need you. I stared at the words. They weren't threatening. They weren't angry. They were sad, lonely, and that made it worse. Something cracked inside me, sharp and quiet. I sat back down, the paper crumpling a little in my grip. A part of me wanted to tear it up, to throw it across the room, pretend I never saw it. But a bigger part just wanted to hide, to bury myself under the blankets and disappear into the kind of sleep that could erase memory. He needed me. That thought echoed in my head, louder than every warning. He needed me, and some broken part of me still needed him. Not in the way a son should need a father, but in the way a drowning person might need a hand, even if it pulled them deeper. I laid down, staring at the ceiling again. The same cracks, the same shadows, but none of them could distract me from the pressure building inside. Downstairs, the TV buzzed low. The fridge hummed in the kitchen. The house was breathing its usual breath, but the air in my room was different. It was waiting. I wondered if he would come to my door again, and I hated that a part of me already knew. If he did, I might not stop him. I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to slow my heartbeat. I stayed still, quiet, hoping maybe this time the night would pass like it used to, unremarkable, uneventful. Maybe if I pretended hard enough, I could make it so, but deep down I knew. I had not imagined what I felt. I do not know how long I lay there, staring into the dark. Every creak, every sigh of wood felt louder, sharper. The note still sat on the nightstand, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Its words were burned into the space around me. I still need you. And just when I thought I could hold out, the knock came. Soft, almost apologetic. 3 taps, hesitant. I held my breath. Then another knock, a little firmer, followed by a voice, quiet, broken. "Rayyan, please. I just want to talk." Not angry, not forceful, just tired, just lost. I closed my eyes. I knew I should stay in bed. I knew I should pretend to be asleep, but I couldn't. My legs moved on their own, carrying me to the door. My hand hovered over the knob for a long second. Then I opened it. Dad, Adil, stood there in the hallway, barefoot, wearing an old t-shirt and sweats. His hair was messy, his eyes rimmed red. He started, then paused, swallowing hard. I just can't do this alone anymore. Something inside me cracked again, and without thinking, I stepped back. An invitation. He came in slowly, like any wrong move would make me slam the door shut. We stood there in the half-dark of my room, the silence between us charged with everything we never said. Then his hands reached for my shoulders, warm, trembling. I tensed. My mind screamed at me to pull away, but I didn't. I let him place his hands there, let him lean in. "Just let me be close for a minute," he murmured. "You don't have to say anything. Just let me stay." I didn't speak. I didn't move. His arms wrapped around me slowly, carefully, like I was made of something fragile. I felt his breath hitch when I didn't resist. I felt his fingers grip the fabric of my shirt, like he was trying to hold together something unraveling inside him. I shut my eyes, pressing my forehead to his shoulder. I didn't know what to feel anymore. Warmth, fear, longing, grief. His hands moved slowly across my back, like he was trying to memorize something fading, like he was clinging to a version of me that no longer existed. "You're still my boy," he whispered. You always will be. My breath caught. I wanted to say something, but no words came. Instead, I clutched the back of his shirt, grounding myself. His heart beat against mine like a distant thunder. Then he pulled back, just a little. His hands rested at my shoulders. His eyes searched mine. He looked broken. I know I messed everything up, he said, voice hoarse. I know I haven't been what you needed, but I never wanted to lose you. His thumb brushed my cheek, a father's touch, but too close. Too much. I leaned back slightly, enough to put space between us. A deal, I said, for the first time not calling him Dad. You haven't lost me, but you can't hold on like this. His eyes widened. The pain was immediate. You're hurting, I continued, softly but firm. I see it. I feel it. But this is not how we heal. He swallowed, nodding slightly, eyes wet. I don't know what's wrong with me, he whispered. I think you do, I said, and you can still fix it. But not like this. Not with me. We stood there, the silence more honest than it had ever been. Then, slowly, he let go. His hands fell to his sides. Empty. I'm sorry, he said. I know. He turned, walking out without another word. This time, I locked the door behind him. And this time, I felt something new. Relief. Not because he left, but because I finally didn't follow. I sat on the bed, staring at the locked door, breathing in the heavy air. The note still sat there on the table, but it did not owe me any more. I had walked to the edge of something dark, and I had chosen to step back. And that, finally, was the beginning of a different kind of healing. I wanted to believe it had passed, that the storm had lifted, that the note under the door, the silent pain in his voice, and the haunted look in his eyes were part of something broken that could still be mended without crossing into something unspoken. I wanted to believe we were okay, but you can only run from the truth for so long before it catches up to you. That night, after a quiet dinner and another evening of silent television, I retreated to my room. The world outside my door faded into muffled sound, the static on the TV, the faint ticking of a clock. I sat at the edge of my bed, numb, the weight of the note still pressed against my chest, invisible but heavy. I miss how you used to trust me. I still need you. Those words haunted me more than anything else, not because of what they said, but because of what they meant. There was grief in them, desperation, a longing that didn't feel right, not between a father and son. I curled under the blanket and stared at the ceiling again, tracing the cracks in the paint as though they could tell me what to do. My chest ached, not with love or anger, but with a disorienting pull of both. Downstairs, I heard the fridge hum. The floor creaked once. Then again, I stayed still. I hoped he would leave me alone. I hoped he would knock. I hoped, and I hated myself for hoping. When the knock came, it was softer than before. 3 slow, careful taps. My heart pounded. Then a whisper. Rayyan, I just want to talk. I lay there, paralyzed. My mind screamed at me to stay put, to stay silent. But something inside me stirred. The need to understand. The need to be understood. I stood. I opened the door. He stood there, eyes tired, hair disheveled, like he hadn't slept in days. His hands were shaking. His face was pale. I didn't know where else to go, he said. I'm not okay. There it was, the confession. I stepped back wordlessly, letting him in. He walked in slowly, as if afraid of the space between us. I didn't speak. I didn't sit. I just waited. I never meant to make things worse, he said, voice cracking. I miss when you were small, when you needed me, when you didn't look at me like a stranger. His words hit something soft in me, something unguarded. I'm not small anymore, I said. I know. He swallowed hard, and that's what scares me. He stepped forward, resting his hands on my shoulders. I froze. He wasn't hurting me. He wasn't holding me too tight. But the pressure of his presence was heavy. You're all I have left, he whispered. And sometimes I feel like if I don't hold on to you, I'll disappear. My throat closed up. It would have been easier if he were angry, if he yelled, if he raged. But this This quiet pain, this twisted dependency, it was harder to fight. I'm not the answer to your pain, I said quietly. His eyes welled with tears. Then who is? The silence that followed was brutal. He stepped closer, and I stepped back. For the first time, I stepped back. A deal, I said, and his name tasted foreign on my tongue. I'm your son, and I can't carry this for you. He blinked. Once. Twice. His lip trembled. I thought we had something no one else could understand, he said, voice small. We do, I said, but not like that. Not in the way you think. His face crumbled. He sank onto the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I'm lost, he whispered. I know. I sat in the chair across from him, not beside him, not touching. He looked up slowly, meeting my eyes with more clarity than I expected. You're right, he said. I've been wrong for a long time. I twisted the love I had into something it wasn't supposed to be. His honesty startled me. It cracked through the fog between us. I don't hate you, I said, but I need space, and you need help. He nodded. It was the first real nod I'd ever seen from him. Not a pretend agreement, not a dismissive gesture, but a man finally facing himself. Will you still visit? He asked, not pleading, just hoping. Not until you see someone, I said. Not until you talk to someone who isn't me. Tears spilled down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them away. I want to be better, he whispered. For you? For myself. I hope you mean that, I said, and in that moment, I think he did. We sat in silence for a while, a silence different from all the others. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't loaded. It was a silence of two people acknowledging the damage and daring to believe it could still be repaired. Eventually, he stood. His body looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but in spirit. He walked to the door and paused. Thank you, he said. For what? I asked. For seeing me, even when I couldn't see myself. He left. I shut the door gently behind him. This time, I locked it, not out of fear, but out of choice. I stood there for a long while, forehead resting against the wood. Then I turned, walked back to bed, and sat. The note he'd once slid under the door still sat on my nightstand. I picked it up and read it again. I still need you. I folded it, placed it in the drawer, and closed it, not because I forgave everything, but because I was done letting it define me. For the first time in a long time, I slept through the night, and when I woke up, the sun outside my window felt real again. It wasn't just a one-time thing. What happened between us that summer? It wasn't a single moment of confusion or weakness. It became a pattern, a loop, a weight I kept carrying long after I should have let it go. That morning, neither of us said much. We moved through the house like ghosts, careful, quiet, avoiding each other's eyes. But something had shifted. The silence was louder now, sharper. There was tension in every glance, in every word, in every moment where his hand brushed my back too casually, or when his voice dropped low, meant only for me. The house felt like it was humming, waiting for something to happen. And later that day, it did. Another moment, another line blurred, a touch that lingered, a conversation that turned into something else, something unspoken, yet deeply understood. He apologized again, like he always did, and I told myself again that it didn't mean anything, that it was loneliness, grief, guilt, but that was a lie I could no longer believe. When I packed up my bag to leave for college again, I told myself the distance would fix everything, that once I was back in the world I was building, the memories would fade, but they didn't. I thought about him more than I should have, about the moments we never talked about, the way his voice softened late at night on the phone, the way his texts always came when I was weakest. Every visit home brought it all back. Holiday breaks, quick weekends, a few days here and there, we'd fall into the same rhythm. A glance held too long, a silence too thick to be innocent. Conversations that always ended in apologies, followed by something I couldn't name. It wasn't violent. It wasn't spoken. But it was real. I knew it was wrong. I knew it wasn't love. Not in the way it should have been. But the pull between us didn't care about right or wrong. It only knew hunger, loneliness, the aching weight of everything left unsaid. And the worst part? Some part of me let it happen. Some part of me needed to feel like I mattered to him. We crossed a line that summer in June. And once crossed, there was no going back. No matter how many times I told myself it would stop, no matter how tightly I held on to guilt, no matter how many whispered promises he made to be better next time, it always came back. Because some wounds don't heal in silence. They just keep reopening quietly every time you come home. But this isn't the end of the story. Not for me. Not for him. Some stories don't finish cleanly. Some just dig deeper, unraveling one memory at a time. And where mine goes from here, that's something even I don't fully know yet. But if you've made it this far, if you felt the weight of these words and the tension hiding beneath them, then stay with me. Because the next chapter, what comes after all of this, is something you'll never see coming. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Explore the channel for more stories like this, because Rayyan's journey is only just beginning. If the story touched you even a little, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another journey like this. And if there's something on your heart, we would love to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story matters too.